The soft rhythm of rain whispered against the tall windows of the old library where Olivia sat curled in a worn leather armchair, a book gently resting on her lap. The scent of old pages and lavender tea lingered in the air as the sky outside turned a deeper shade of gray. Thunder rolled far in the distance, but it was the comforting kind, low and slow like the world sighing in contentment. Olivia had always found rainy days perfect for storytelling, and today, the story that came to her mind was one her grandfather used to tell her, a story of lush gardens, forgotten kingdoms, and the quiet magic of love that shaped wonders of the world. It was the story of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, but in her heart, it was always more than a historical legend. It was a dream whispered through the leaves and vines, a tale she carried like a lullaby. Long ago, in a land far from here, a young dreamer named Daniel lived by a wide river that shimmered like polished silver beneath the sunlight. Daniel was not a prince, nor a scholar, nor a soldier. He was a gardener. From the time he was old enough to walk, he loved the feeling of cool soil between his fingers and the sweet scent of blooming jasmine in the morning. His mother, Evelyn, had taught him the names of every flower in their village, and his father, Gregory, had shown him how to make plants grow from seeds no bigger than a grain of sand. While other boys dreamed of riding horses into battle or trading in faraway markets, Daniel dreamed of a garden so tall it touched the sky, a place where rain and sun would dance between trees that never stopped blooming. One day, a group of travelers passed through his village. Among them was a woman named Margaret who spoke with a voice as soft as wind chimes. She was from a distant city where the river met a great palace. She told stories of kings and queens, of marketplaces filled with spices and silks, and of a queen who longed for the mountains of her homeland. Margaret stayed at Daniel's village only one night, but the story of the homesick queen stayed with him for a lifetime. He imagined her walking through stone courtyards, looking up at a sky that felt too flat, too far from the peaks she missed. He wondered what it would be like to build something that brought her mountains to her, gardens that rose higher and higher until they touched the clouds. A living monument to memory and love. Years passed, and Daniel grew from a boy with dirt on his knees to a young man with calloused hands and a heart full of quiet purpose. He traveled east, following the great river to the heart of a kingdom where stories lived in stone and water. There, in the city of Babylon, he found work tending the king's gardens. The city was grand, with walls taller than trees and ziggurats that reached into the sky. But its gardens were flat, formal, beautiful in a way that left Daniel's heart quiet instead of full. One afternoon, while pruning fig trees in the courtyard, he met Clara. Clara was not royalty, though she walked with the grace of someone who had learned to listen to the wind. She worked in the palace library, translating scrolls from distant lands. She wore simple dresses of soft blue and kept a notebook tucked into her belt, where she wrote things that made her smile. When she first saw Daniel speaking softly to the plants as he worked, she laughed, not in a cruel way, but as if she understood something wonderful. They spoke of trees and books, of rivers and stars, and of the homes they had left behind to find something they could not name. Underneath the olive trees, they began to imagine a place that was not only a garden, but a story told in vines and blossoms, a memory built of living things. One evening, as rain fell lightly on the marble tiles of the palace, Clara shared with Daniel a scroll she had found. It described a lost kingdom where gardens grew on rooftops, nourished by hidden streams. The words were old and faded, but they lit a spark inside Daniel that would never go out. Together, they began to draw sketches by candlelight, their fingers stained with ink and soil. They dreamed of waterfalls cascading down stone walls, of citrus trees swaying on balconies, of sweet herbs growing near quiet ponds filled with lilies. Daniel saw it as a gift, not to a queen, but to the world, a place where anyone could walk and feel peace humming in their bones. With time, their dreams caught the attention of the king himself. A kind and thoughtful man named Leonard, the king was nearing the twilight of his reign and longed to leave behind something meaningful. When he heard Daniel's vision, he smiled. "Build it," he said. Build it for those who feel too far from home. Build it for those who have forgotten how to dream. And so, the work began. Stone by stone, terrace by terrace, the garden rose. It took years and many hands, masons, artists, farmers, builders, all working together under Daniel's guidance. Water was drawn from the great river and carried up through a series of clever pulleys and channels that Clara had helped design, using knowledge from ancient scrolls. Flowers from distant lands bloomed beside native ones. Birds came and stayed, building nests among branches that grew at dizzying heights. Bees hummed through ivy-covered arches. Children wandered wide-eyed through fern-lined paths. Musicians played lullabies beneath willows that bent their branches low, as if to listen. Every part of the garden whispered, "You are not alone. You are safe here." And always, the rain came, sometimes in gentle mists that clung to petals like pearls, sometimes in soft drizzles that made the moss between the stones smell green and ancient. Daniel and Clara would walk hand in hand through the garden, listening to the rain fall through layers of leaves. They rarely spoke on those walks. The silence between them was full of knowing, of gratitude, of time, of everything they had grown not just in soil, but in one another. As years passed, the hanging gardens of Babylon became more than a marvel. Travelers came from across oceans and deserts, not only to see it, but to feel it. There was something in the air there, something you couldn't name, but would miss once you left. It wasn't magic, not in the way of spells or potions. It was the kind of magic that lived in kindness, in patience, in the way sunlight fell through vines and the way people spoke more softly when surrounded by beauty. And then, one day, Daniel planted the last seed. It was an apple tree, gifted by a child who had visited the garden every year with his grandmother. Clara was with him as he dug the hole, placed the roots into the earth, and covered them gently with soil. The rain came down in a hush, and they stood under the wide stone archway, watching as the tiny tree shivered slightly in the breeze, as if waking from a long sleep. That night, Daniel wrote a note in his journal. It read, "We did not build this garden to last forever. But while it lives, it will remind people what love and rain and patience can grow." Olivia blinked slowly, her thumb resting on the page where her grandfather had written down this story decades ago. The tea beside her had gone cold. Outside, the rain still whispered, steady and soft. She looked up at the sky and imagined vines curling around ancient stones, leaves catching droplets of water, and a boy named Daniel who believed that beauty could bring people home. She closed her eyes, the pages still open on her lap, and breathed in deeply. The rain sang her to sleep,